This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Branding Isolate.
Hey, my fellow people of the plant, Kevin here, and I want to give a quick shout out to Elena Praskovsky and the rest of the Branding Isolate team. I recently hired the branding agency to update my existing website, and I can tell you they knocked it out of the park. The process was seamless, and Elena was there along the way to help walk me through what content was needed on my end so that she could build the best website experience for my users. As a serial entrepreneur, I can tell you that website development has always been a challenge for me, but not with Branding Isolate. Elena and the team have over 2 decades of experience in design, branding, and website development. They make sure that your CBD or wellness brand sells, connects, and succeeds, and that's exactly what my website is doing. Check it out if you don't believe me at cannabinoid-connect.com. So if you're looking to build the best website experience for your customers, you need to get in touch with the team at Branding Isolate. Give them a call today at 832-379-8978 or visit their website at brandingisolate.com. Branding Isolate, the branding agency that handcrafts brands that sell, connect, and succeed. Hello, my fellow people of the plant. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Cannabinoid Connect podcast, your favorite podcast that includes industry-facing conversations with the industry's leading experts that aim to educate and inform the public regarding the plant's endless benefits. My guest today is Tammy Pettigrew. She's a California-based cannabis educator and advocate. Tammy, welcome back. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, I mean, I know when we talked, it was during the heightened craziness of 2020, and things have kind of changed and evolved within the industry. So I'm glad we're able to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. We were in the thick of it. I was on family vacation, just driving up the coast. Nothing was really open.
Right, yeah, and things are starting to slowly open again. So that's good. But it was the pandemic really kind of helped move the cannabis industry in a lot of different ways, right? When it comes to consumer adoption, public support, and when it comes to politics as well. So tell me, what have you been working on since we last talked?
Oh man, since we last talked, I had launched a book club. So for me, one of the skills that I picked up during COVID was reading again, and actually, because there's a difference between buying books and reading books, two separate activities. So I started reading more, and I figured there's people out there who could use an accountability partner. So I started the Higher Learning Book Club, and we're 4 months in, and it's been a blast hanging with everyone and kind of watching them grow with their knowledge and step out as educators as well. So that's one of the things I've been doing since we spoke last time.
That is so awesome. Okay, so it's called the Higher Learning Book Club. And so like what is it? It's online. You guys meet like how frequently, and what are the books based on? Is it kind of anything?
So we meet weekly. We read about 40 to 50 pages, and the books are always cannabis based. So we'll do 50 pages, meet, talk about it, and then come back and do the next. I try to break down one book a month, unless it's heavy ink. Then we'll kind of do it over 2 months. But right now we're doing The Emperor Wears No Clothes by Jack Hare. So this one's like a OG cannabis Bible, and it's just been fun. Looking at all the different perspectives from the different people in the industry. They're all kind of saying similar things, but from their eyes. So Steve D'Angelo has a version of what it looked like. Jack Hare has a version of what it looked like, the historians, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And when you say like a vision of what it looks like, you mean like a world in which we have full access to the plant?
Yeah, so Jack is looking at it from that perspective. And then also he has more like of an angered tone, like, can you believe that this was happening? And then you have Steve D'Angelo, who came up as a yippie. So he was a young hippie. And he's coming from it from like a rebellious standpoint, then to kind of like understanding that maybe some of their actions were detrimental, and fixing that. So many different perspectives.
Wow. And correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I gathered and from what I understand from Jack Hare, he was like a pretty staunch, like conservative to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Until he was introduced to cannabis. Was it through his girlfriend?
Yes. So he was a staunch Goldwater Republican, former combat veteran. And he tried cannabis once, it didn't do anything. And then the second time he tried it with his girlfriend and had the best sex of his life. And that is how we got the advocate and the hemperer himself. got,
Wow.
yeah.
And it's funny that you mention his tone. Like you can tell it's very like abrupt. Like I can't believe this is happening. Like why, right? And I talked about this with Jeffrey Welsh just in the prior episode, and it's the recent comments made by the governor of Nebraska and other politicians, not just him, where there's false claims about death and killing your kids and all this kind of stuff where there's no data to back it up, right? And so I noticed when you talk about tone, a lot of people that came out to speak, and address what they had said, it was that kind of forceful, like, wait, what are you talking about here? That's not correct, and there was a lot of people that were correcting him in those statements. Do you
Yeah.
get that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's basically kind of pulling the wool off. The government has been doing a deliberate misinformation campaign and they can't prove it. And I'm trying to tell you this, but it's always kind of the defense back. It's just as angry. And when they have nothing else, all they can say is, well, it's illegal. That's why it's bad. And it wouldn't be illegal if it wasn't bad, but it's illegal and it works. I mean, all the defense that they have, it's so appalling to keep it prohibited. So you have people like Jack, who is just kind of like, this, I cannot believe this. I can't support this. This is stupid. And I don't think he has any political allegiance in the book after he kind of denounces being on the right. But yeah, all of it is just appalling.
Right, and that's kind of what you've kind of set your life's mission to be, right? Is to be part of that advocacy educational group where you're kind of just to dispel those lies and provide information that is accurate. So tell us like what you're doing when it comes to content creation and other things.
So I have a course where I did a Cannabis 101 course. I've taken other cannabis courses, and there's a lot of information that I felt like I didn't need to know, or maybe there was some other information that I felt like was missing. So that's what I created. And then I get to go live for Herb's audience Tuesdays and Thursdays and kind of talk about some news story and engage with the audience. And it's always so much fun. And I always end up on my soapbox and getting really irritated and really mad. And I kind of have to reel myself in, but they kind of get to see firsthand that passion of when I hear that a state in the union is passing legislation so that cannabis can never be legal. That's something that's going to fire me up and kind of explain why I think it's nonsense and kind of the stuff that nobody else is talking about.
It's a good platform for you to like vent and
Yeah,
really have your audience like hear firsthand what you think about certain issues and
yeah,
topics.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, there's a certain issue and topic that I'm interested in talking to you about. And it's come up a few times on the podcast. And that is how we talk to our kids about this stuff, right? Because alcohol is legal, and I'm not advocating or support saying that kids should be doing alcohol or drinking alcohol or consuming cannabis under the age that they should, right, of 21. But
Right.
what I'm saying is when it comes to educating them around its therapeutic value and how basically we're biologically married to this plant with our endocannabinoid system. So I know you're a parent, Tammy, so why don't you talk to us about how you go about those discussions and what they look like?
Oh man. So my first real discussion with my children was when we were planting last spring. We were at home. We decided we were going to plant our own fruits and vegetables, and mommy was also planting cannabis. So they kind of watched it go from seedling to a plant. And the only thing that mommy did was add water, just like she did for the peppers and everything else, and sunlight. So that was kind of my way of showing them that, hey, it's just a plant. And then educating them. They take CBD whenever they have a tummy ache or a headache or they get hurt, to help calm them down. They know there's therapeutic value. And then I talk to them about how it helps with cancer and autism. And it helps with epilepsy and so many things what this plant can do in the best way that I can as kids. And then I kind of let them know, but also it can put you in jail. what mommy's doing could maybe, attract the wrong attention. At school, they're going to teach you that it's evil. And they're just kind of like, what? But it's a plant. How could it be evil? So I definitely wanted to get to them before the Red Ribbon program and the DARE program at school did. I would say the downside of it all is when they see cannabis billboards in California. I don't like when they see the word cannabis and they light up. That is kind of like I don't agree with the billboards at all as a
What
parent.
what are they? Because I'm not familiar with that. So what are they, like hypersexualized? Are they like what?
No, not even. You'll just see like cannabis delivery. And then my kids are like, Mom, look, cannabis. And it's like, whoever's like standing around me, I'm like, shh, 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 like, stop. So, yeah, but
Oh,
I
that's so
definitely,
funny.
right. But I do tell them the risks too. Obviously, the biggest side effect being you could go to jail,
Hmm.
and that we don't really know what, it can do to kids' brains. Although Jack Hare talks about it does nothing to the kid's brain, just like it aids in the adult brain, it aids in the kid brain. So that's kind of where I'm at. And then just looking at, the generation right now who's really struggling with suicide, depression, and anxiety at the highest rate since who knows when. I think of all like the benzodiazepines and antidepressants and anxiety medicine that they're giving these teenagers. And then I think about the therapeutic value that cannabis has in helping. And I believe that one is probably going to do more harm than good. But it could probably put me in jail. But that's something that I'll have to face once my kids get to that age and they're struggling. Would I rather put them on medicines that are going to have horrible side effects, maybe give them the shakes for the rest of their lives? Or would I be open to giving them THC edibles or maybe, a vaporizer or something?
Hmm. I love that you're so transparent with them, and the fact that you really like over the years, right, due to prohibition, we've built this kind of narrative around the plant. It's like, oh, it's this, it's bad, it does this, but it's a plant at the end of the day. It's a plant. And so when you approach your kids and you kind of take that angle where, look, it's a plant that we planted the seed, now it's growing, and you're seeing I'm putting water on it. It kind of takes all that other noise away, right, and kind of just makes it very black and white. Like, oh, that makes sense. And then from there, when you add the more complex topics, like you mentioned, like people go to jail and whatnot, I'm sure that it's difficult for a young person to wrap their head around that, but at least they understand. Again, it's just a plant,
Mhm.
right? And it takes away some of that confusion, I think. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, they're still kind of like appalled that it's illegal. Like, why isn't broccoli illegal or tomatoes or Brussels sprouts illegal? So, and I feel like you could even apply that to adults when they see that, then it's just kind of like, oh, what is evil about this? Um, yeah, it's just kind of for kids always can think of things and make something complex seem so simple. And it kind of had to get on their level and realize, wow, this is probably an effective way to show other people. Make it like, what is those videos, a time lapse video, and then maybe caption it, what's so evil about this?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, just in the most simplest terms, like simplicity is brilliance, right? In some
Yeah.
ways. And then you talked about how, like, in other options, you've got cannabis, or you have like opioids or other medications that, in some cases have proved to maybe make someone worse off than what they were. We see a lot of data right now around that, right? We see opioid deaths gone down in some states where it's become adult use. So do you use some of that data when educating people and point back to those studies?
Yeah, absolutely. I try to talk about the reduced crime rates, the reduction in prescription drug use, the reduction in alcohol and alcohol related accidents and abuse. But unfortunately, the propagandists are still out there. And they're arguing that no, actually, crime is going up. Actually, abuse is going up. But I can guarantee
Directly related to cannabis?
yes, there's a book called Tell Your Children that makes this argument that schizophrenia is going up and mental health issues are growing up, and so as much as you try to spit facts, there's just so many people that will come back at you with it's fake news, your misinformation. you sound, it's kind of frustrating, but you kind of now have to. I'm still trying to figure out how to espouse data without having like the fake news people come at me. And it's just, you do what you can. So yeah, I try to use data, but I don't try not too much because y- you can't make everyone happy, but you definitely need some kind of like science and facts to back up what you're saying.
Yeah, and like the data, it's a good point because like they are sitting on a mountain of data that has been uh, built up over the years due to money and whatnot to spread lies about it, right? So it's kind of hard to combat that when there's been prohibition. In my view, I think one of the most powerful stories to tell is the testimonial stories, right? The stories like how you mentioned with young children and epilepsy and how cannabis helps with these ailments, and having those people tell those stories firsthand. How can you tell someone that they're not feeling better when they're saying that they are, you know?
Yeah. I mean, our government says basically, we don't care how many lives are saved by cannabis, being high is a moral issue. That's kind of the argument that we see that, okay, so it saves your life and it makes your life better, but being high is just really, really bad. And it just makes me laugh because being drunk is another form of being high. Um, that's exactly what it is. The only
Drinking
difference.
coffee is also right.
Yes, and tea. Those are
Yeah.
all versions of altering your mood, aka being high. So I just don't understand. And pharmaceuticals get you high. I mean, other parts of nature can get you high. So it's just kind of they're running out of things to say. But based on like the research that I've done, the next argument for the prohibitionists is that cannabis use is going to be linked to communism and being a pacifist. That's kind of like the order in which we're going. So that's just kind of the cycle that we're in.
It's like they're pivoting. So now they've gone from it causes murders and death
Yes.
to gateway to other bad drugs to now
Causes no
political theory and ideology.
it causes no violence. It's going to make men soft. They're not going to want to fight for this nation. And they're going to use the same logic that they used to get rid of it to keep it illegal. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good to know that that's coming because that was going to be my next question. Was like my prediction is that with so much public support and so much momentum politically among the states and even at the federal level, big pharma is about to really start ponying up some money and lobbying again, once again, to kind of flood everyone with misinformation, and
Yeah.
that's probably one angle that sounds like they're going to take. You know.
Yeah, I absolutely. Because I was curious, like, what could they do? But reading Smoke Signals, and then again, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, where he talks about when Anslinger employed it the first time. Yeah, that's for sure coming. And I think the schizophrenia and the mental health thing is also kind of like a star thing. And then the kids, always the kids. That's always a fun one for them to slip in there.
Yeah, like everything that is above the age of 21 and up is harmful for kids. Like no one ever said that kids should do it. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
absolutely.
Just to assume that though is just kind of ridiculous. But
Yeah.
anyway, so let's talk about federal legalization. In my view, I think we're still a little ways out. I think we're going to see some reform first, right? Like safe banking, maybe removal of 280E. But what's your confidence level and what's your kind of outlook with federal legalization?
So my prediction was by the end of the year, we will have federal legalization. I'm not so sure on how we will get there. Typically, um, the left is going to be the one who is going to pass cannabis legalization. So since the left currently controls the White House, the House, and the Senate, it's highly likely. Although I will say that typically Democratic presidents are horrible when it comes to the war on drugs. They're just as bad as the right. So I would say Nixon and Reagan probably take the crown, but I would say Clinton and Obama are right up there with Bush. So yeah, I say banking is going to be the first order of business. If they can get safe banking, you can pretty much bet that legalization is coming. I just hope that it's a full deschedule of cannabis and not a reschedule. If you drop cannabis down to Schedule 2, now you have FDA approval required for all products on the market, which basically would get rid of our industry. And of course, I don't want to see crazy taxing of this plant. We don't tax alcohol or pharmaceuticals like this. Why are we taxing an agricultural product like this? You're not, I mean, once everybody realizes it's just a plant, it'll be nice to kind of see all of the scrutiny and security and the taxing around it disappear. It'll be kind of like the dot-com boom, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're so right, and with the whole, I'm so with you on the descheduling as opposed to rescheduling, because the rescheduling will do us no good. I mean, it'll still hinder us in ways where you can't, conduct peer review research studies and whatnot and learn about it. And then also, like you said, it'll just handicap the industry overall with the FDA, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they already take forever to get stuff through. So,
Oh, as we know, yeah, we're still waiting on CBD consumer,
yeah,
oversight. So
exactly.
yeah. So I think you're right. I think safe banking's gonna come. That's gonna be able to really allow a lot of these operators to breathe. I would imagine in your business, like, are you affected at all by safe banking and what you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't touch the plant, but if you Google my name, people don't want to bank with me at all. They see, I have a leaf in my logo. Um, I call myself the cannabis cutie. So yeah, I kind of do the PayPal thing and that works so far, so good. But I just kind of given up on banking and just worry about them freezing your money. It's just not a fun idea. Yeah.
No, and then just like being able to like pull the rug out of your feet at any time. Like, no, we're not gonna bank with you anymore. Like it's crazy out there right now.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so tell me, let's talk about what do you prefer when it comes to, like, you're in California, you guys have been online for quite some time now when it comes to adult use. What do you prefer, and what are your thoughts when it comes to sun-grown cannabis versus indoor? Obviously, with indoor, you have more control, right?
Yeah.
But what do you think?
I prefer my cannabis sun grown. I mean, the cannabis plant it can grow in any climate. In a controlled environment is optimal because you can control pests and wind and all types of different forces that nature you can't really protect your plants from. But the sun is able to produce rays that a light bulb can't. So those rays are going to produce special chemicals. So it may be 16% and ugly sun-grown cannabis, but there may be some chemicals in there that you'll never be able to produce with an indoor lamp. So I always prefer sun-grown vegetables, fruit, and my cannabis. I do love indoor as well, but when it comes down to which one is more medicinal, I would say the outdoor.
Yeah, and then you live in California. You guys got perfect weather all the time, so
Yeah,
I could see also why sun-grown would be preferred growing method for sure.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I just talked to Kaylin the other day out of New York, and I think they have one harvest per year, with how cold it gets out there. So,
Wow.
in those types of situations, I'm sure you got to look to either greenhouse or indoor
Mhm.
for those off-season grows.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you talk about like the chemicals, so it is different in terms of like medicinally, like, is there just more of a terpene profile and more secondary compounds within it? Like,
Yeah, you're gonna have a wide variety, a fuller spectrum of chemicals. So that's, I mean, and I heard a doctor say when you're talking about medicinal, outdoor is better because you have such a variety and wider, broad base of medicinal products that are in that plant versus you can have maybe 4 or 5 rays from a bulb, and you're only going to get that subset that can be produced with that bulb. So this doctor was a bit extreme in his saying. He's like dumb and high indoor medicine, outdoor, but just typically, yeah, you're going to get more of an ensemble effect with outdoor cannabis because you're going to have more variety.
got you. What are your thoughts on Humboldt County banning hemp cultivation?
I mean, I think it's smart. The headline, it is like, whoa, why would they do that? But Humboldt County grows majority of their cannabis outdoors. And if you know anything about the variety in the two, hemp plants have seeds, and those seeds can travel via insects, birds who absolutely love hemp seed, um, the wind, weather. And if those seeds touch that girl, the female cannabis plant, the buds that we want to smoke, what she's going to do is she's going to focus all her time in creating seeds. That's what she'll do. So you kind of need to sexually starve her from seeds and boys so that she'll focus on only making those beautiful flowers. She can't do both. And if she has to pick, she's going to pick the seeds like a mom. She's going to
Yeah.
tend to her seed.
So that makes so much sense. And from what I've talked, I forget who said this on the podcast, but they said also that even if it's an indoor grow or a greenhouse, it still won't matter. Like they have to be completely separate because that pollination can happen regardless, right? But like I'm wondering, and I get Humboldt County because of like obviously it's like optimal growing area, the Emerald Triangle, right? Um, but I'm wondering, is banning the answer, right? Because we talked about it's a plant, right? And it's the same plant, whether we want to call it hemp or we want to call it marijuana or cannabis. So what like could be if banning, if that's the only option, that's fine if that's what you think. But if is there any other way that we could maybe zone different areas for cultivation for different purposes or
Yeah, they could definitely figure out how to zone it, but it's probably already an issue that outdoor cultivation sites are already kind of too scattered that trying to figure that out might be a time consuming thing. And are the citizens of Trinity County, those three counties, are they interested in even growing hemp? Or is it just something that
right?
smaller farmers are doing and then it's actually growing commercial crops? So I definitely think it's something that they could figure out. I just with the history and the culture of Humboldt, I don't think that they care.
And that, no, and that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a great point. Like, do they even want to grow hemp? And if that's what the municipality votes on, then that's fine, right? Because of their legacy in THC.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the more that I think we could just put our heads together and figure out the zoning, because ultimately, like, we want more access to the plant overall, whether people are consuming CBD or the other secondary cannabinoids, or if it's THC, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it's so complex. I know that Louis Lujan out of Arizona was also working on that because that was they just came online as well, and I
Mhm.
know that that's just going to be a big pain point, coming moving forward.
Yeah, I definitely think that'll be one of the things that federal legislators are going to have to figure out. I mean, typically in the United States, imagine we have full legalization. California would not be worried about hemp. That would be going back to the Midwestern and the Southern states who have a rich history with it anyway. You would see hemp fields going up all over Tennessee, Kentucky, the Virginias, Carolinas, and that's kind of what you want to see. In Oklahoma, you have 4 growing seasons for hemp. So I think once we have full scale legalization, we'll have the states that are able to specialize in what they specialize based on their climates.
Yeah, I think you're so right. Like Texas is definitely gonna be one of those like
Mhm.
industrial hemp states where we have
Yeah.
so much land. Throw that in there, grow the fiber, pull it out, and separate the
Yeah.
fiber from herd and go. And California obviously would be a state where they focus on beautiful buds, right? And growing optimal flower. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I was gonna say something, but I lost my train of thought. But it was related to what you were saying about the different states. Um, anyway, it'll come back to me.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what else is on your mind? Like, what else do you want to talk about that is has been interesting to you that you think that the audience would get value out of?
Oh man, I mean, I've kind of been paying attention to what's happening with states wanting to ban this stuff. Obviously, they're worried about federal legalization coming because they're taking away the option before it's even sat on the table. And I think that's something that we need to pay attention to is there are people who are interested in protecting legal slavery, the 13th Amendment, and cannabis is a number one recruiter for being able to legally kidnap people for this, especially poor people. So I definitely think that while we're enjoying our cannabis, our legal cannabis, we still need to be mindful that there are people sitting behind bars for doing exactly what we're doing. Um, I saw that you did an interview with Corvain Cooper talking about his story. And that's just kind of something I want people to focus on, that there's more than just the demonization of the plant. There's a protection of industries and families who their wealth is at stake if this thing goes through. They're not going to be happy. The DuPont family would stand to lose a lot of business because of all the replaceable items that can come through from hemp, just the herd itself, not
Yeah.
let alone the stocks.
Yeah, no, that conversation with Corvain was awesome, man. He truly is a special guy, and it's just amazing how he's so positive and still upbeat after, the injustice that he served for 10 years in prison, And you bring up a good point though, and I want to ask you, like, we talk a lot, and there's no doubt that there's racial injustice in this country, right? I mean, we were founded on that premise. Like,
Mhm.
but why is racial injustice and cannabis inter talked about? Like, why aren't they connected? Because, like you mentioned, like, it is a form of slavery, right? It's been a way to put people of color, black and brown people, in prison for many, many years, to demonize them. And I feel like both issues go hand in hand, yet we talk about them separately.
Yeah, I mean, I think our country is very uncomfortable having that conversation still. If you read The New Jim Crow, which is a great book by Michelle Alexander, she talks about how essentially we've always figured out how to replace slavery. We did it with Jim Crow. And then how did we replace Jim Crow? We did it with mass incarceration. And, you know, for people, mass incarceration was also a way to make it, they didn't explicitly say, this is racist. But when you have New York City, where 90% of the people being stopped for cannabis are people of color, it is absolutely a policy that is biased. And the reason why our cannabis mindset is still very much racist is because that's where the roots of the tree began. We planted that seed in racism. So this tree, where it is now, these branches come from racist roots. And we have to be honest about that. Until we can get over that and understand that this plant was legalized because we wanted to demonize the people who were using it, AKA Mexicans and Black people, we're not going to move forward too far. People who want to be in this industry but don't want to talk about social equity or social or racial justice probably shouldn't be here. You've got to really understand the history and how dark it is. Although this plant is loving and joyful and it brings us a sense of purpose or lightheartedness, the darkness in which this plant has had to go through and the people that have suffered because of it is kind of something that needs to be addressed, and it can't be ignored. If it's ignored, I don't even want to support your business if you're ignoring it.
It's so true. No, I think that's so right. Especially the successful larger operators right now, if they don't have that in their mission statement or somewhere within their value pillars, right? Every corporation has their pillars of what they stand for. It should be included in that, because we wouldn't be here today without those people, you
Right.
know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you're spreading that awareness. And is that the next book? That was it, The New Jim Crow? Is that what you mentioned?
Oh, no,
Is
that's
that
not the next book. That's definitely going to be one that we read in 2021. But the next book that we're going to be reading is actually about Humboldt. I had no idea that they had a very lucrative timber industry that was decimated. And it was kind of like the perfect storm for cannabis to kind of being started to grown up in that area to kind of save their economy.
Wow. Well, hey, I want to join when that book, because I've already read The Emperor Wears No Clothes, but for the next book, I'm in, and
Yeah.
we'll start to like spread the word on the podcast too, because I think that's awesome that you're doing that. No, not many people read books anymore,
Yeah, it's
and
true.
it's all articles or tweets or posts and whatnot. And so the more that we can do to educate ourselves in this industry, that's it's a win for everyone,
Absolutely.
so
Yeah. A
I'll have
well-rounded industry would be nice.
yeah. I'll have to get the information from you after we end here. But what do you want to leave the audience with before we wrap up, Tammy? Anything else?
Oh man. Yeah, I just hope everyone is staying healthy. Make sure you're taking your hemp seed oil. That's the best vaccine against COVID. If you're not planning to get the vaccine, I'm not. Hemp seed oil is going to definitely boost your immunity and make it so that you can fight off any virus or bacteria that enters your body. So hemp seed oil, hemp seeds, cannabinoids, drink your water, stay healthy. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for coming on, Tammy. Let's do it again real soon, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. And thank you all for listening. Bye.
Bye.